Kubrick used real 18th century clothes, Downton Abbey dressed its cast in smelly antiques, and Memoirs of a Geisha had 250 hand-painted kimonos. These 10-period dramas went all in on historical accuracy. Stanley Kubrick's Barry Lyndon takes place in 18th century Ireland and goes a step above and beyond when it comes to historically accurate costume design. Several of the costumes used in the film were actual clothing pieces from the period that were bought at auction. It's not surprising that costume design was one of the 4 Oscars this film won, out of 7 total nominations. While the costumes in Jane Eyre were historically accurate, director Cary Fukunaga changed the timeline of the story by a decade because he felt that mid-1830s costumes were unflattering. Nevertheless, Jane Eyre earned the Oscar for Best Costumes, its only Academy Award nomination. Natalie Portman was lauded for her portrayal of Jackie Kennedy in this film set in the aftermath of JFK's assassination. Costume designer Madeleine Fontaine was challenged in making the dark red wool dress worn by Jacqueline Kennedy during her White House tour because of the way the color was grayed out on black and white television. She ended up having to make the dress in 2 different shades. Some of the costumes worn in the hit show are actual articles of clothing from the 1910s and 20s. According to some cast members, they didn't smell very well because the articles of clothing were so delicate they couldn't be laundered. The sequel to 1998's Elizabeth featured several detailed costumes that won an Oscar for costume designer Alexandra Byrne. One thing in the film she was against was having the title character in blue, claiming it wasn't a period color. Director Shekhar Kapoor, however, wanted to use color for storytelling. Peaky Blinders follows an English family of gangsters in the early 20th century. Stylistically, the show was spot on in terms of fashion and even the way the characters spoke, despite some criticism of the accents used. However, the real Peaky Blinders gang was more prominent during the 1890s, not the 1920s when the show takes place. This show from Netflix follows the life of Queen Elizabeth II and features some of the best historical costumes. In fact, some of the costumes from the show had their own exhibit at the Paley Center for Media in Beverly Hills. That's quite an honor for a costume designer. Sofia Coppola's Marie Antoinette was criticized for the creative liberties taken with the plot, but that didn't stop it from being nominated for, and winning, an Oscar for Best Costumes. Great detail was put into the exquisite costumes, and Coppola even had hundreds of custom-made shoes to accompany the costumes in the film. Phantom Thread is a film about Reynolds Woodcock, a renowned dressmaker in 1950s London, so it should come as no surprise that a movie about someone working in the fashion industry would feature historically accurate costuming. Of the film's 6 Oscar nominations, its only win went to Mark Bridges for his achievement in costume design. According to Oscar-winning costume designer Colleen Atwood, more than 250 kimonos were made for Memoirs of a Geisha. The construction of the kimonos themselves was fairly historically accurate, along with the fact that many of the designs were hand-painted on silk. However, some liberties were taken with the patterns in order to match the personality of each character.